3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Ole Miss at Kentucky. Ole Miss looking for revenge in this game because last year they entered the season as the number 6 team in the country, its highest preseason ranking since 1970. However, even after entering the year number 6, Ole Miss missed the 12-team playoff last year after finishing with a 9-3 record. The first and most shocking of those 3 losses came at home against Kentucky, a school that only won 3 other games in the 2024 season. Ole Miss entered that game as 15.5-point favorites in that ball game. So Lane Kiffin and the Rebels now on the road at Kentucky looking for revenge this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was really, it's not where things went off the rails for Ole Miss, but it felt inexplicable. And it felt like Kentucky had the formula. Look, just prevent them from hitting home runs down the field, right? And then keep yourself in the game and win an ugly defensive game. It's exactly what they got to do against Ole Miss. And even then, later in the year, there was a couple of games for the Rebels that it burned them. If you could prevent the deep ball like Kentucky did, they gave you the blueprint, then that's how you beat them for the most part, right? So I think there's a big revenge factor here. If Ole Miss wants to get their SEC slate off to a good start, they really need to win this game. And Kentucky, look, solid win. I know it's a 1-score win over Toledo last week, but Toledo's a really good team. Kentucky gets out starting 1-0, so this is really interesting. But I think for Ole Miss especially, they got to not get flashbacks or this game could get dangerous. They know from last year.
So tell me more about the new quarterback for Kentucky, Zach Calzada, against an Ole Miss defense that was one of the best in the nation last year, but also lost a lot of talent from that defense.
They lost a lot of talent, and I think Kentucky, look, I think the facts are they're going to want to make this game the same as they did last year, right? It was 17-13, I believe it was. It was ugly. It was defensive. They were running for 4 yards at a time. They got the one big play at the end to Barryon Brown that set up the winning touchdown. I just think for Kentucky, it's all about controlling the pace of the game. Run the football. Run the football. Look, last week they ran for 220 yards. Their 2 running backs combined for 207 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Dante Dowdell, Seth McGowan. These are the guys that you have to ride behind with Josh Braun and that offensive line, those guys up front. So I think the story is going to be the same. The difference is, and maybe it's not that different because it was Brock Vandegrift last year and he struggled most. He played pretty well in this game, but Zach Calzada last week, it was a struggle. He only threw for 85 yards, 43 passing grade. And Max, the thing that concerns me with Calzada, and this is what I saw with him at Incarnate Word and just the style that he played with, is it's just an absolute gunslinger. I mean, just going for home runs. Last week against Toledo, a very good secondary, average depth of target of almost 15 yards. You just can't do that in the SEC. You have to dial it back and work the chains, right? You're not going to get those home runs all the time against SEC defenses, and this is the first one you're playing. Couldn't do it against Toledo last week. They didn't have more than, I think it was 2 explosive pass plays last week, and they didn't go for big home runs like that. So I think what you're looking at, as always with Kentucky, be physical, ride your offensive line, run the football, and keep Calzada out of 3rd and longs. And if you're Calzada, I think you need to dial it back. You have to move the chains in this game. You have to play it more conservative. If he has a 15-yard average depth of target in this game, it's going to be a problem because you just can't try. Kentucky's not built for that. They're not built to do that. Not built to sling the ball downfield like that, which is the part that makes it his style a little bit of an odd fit for their offense. If you can get it going naturally with play action and with the run game, I have no issue with it. But just dropping back and slinging the ball downfield like that, like he did at the FCS level with Incarnate Word, it's not going to work. So Kentucky just really needs to get down, run the football directly at Ole Miss, milk the clock, control the game.
I think Kentucky improved that offensive line a lot because last year was a really bad offensive line, and they added a lot of transfers this year too. Joshua Braun, the guard they have, is a really good player, I thought, from Arkansas. So they did improve the offensive line. So, yeah, they got to get physical. And also, Ole Miss on the other side of the ball, that offensive line is going to play better too because Ole Miss, my matchup to watch is, can they limit the pressure on Austin Simmons? So, listen, Ole Miss's passing attack has a lot going for it right now. Obviously, Lane Kiffin, the head coach, one of the brightest offensive minds that we have in college football. The receiving core, I had as a top 5 receiving core in the country entering the year. Now, of course, Luke Haas battling that injury is tough, but they have plenty of depth at tight end, too, with Daquan Wright, who might be a top 15 tight end in the country. Caleb Odom was a former highly rated recruit coming out of high school, too, at tight end. So they're just fine at tight end, even with Luke Haas, another Arkansas transfer, ironically, battling injury. And the quarterback, Austin Simmons, has plenty of talent, too, as a former 4-star, and he looked good last year as a backup. The one issue with Ole Miss's passing game in recent years has been its offensive line. The Rebels were 90th in pass blocking grade last year, and they only had a 64.6 pass blocking grade in week 1 against Georgia State. The interior offensive line for Ole Miss was a big problem in that game. Only a 45.4 pass blocking grade from the interior offensive line against Georgia State. They allowed a sack and 3 quarterback hits from that interior. And Simmons struggled with pressure in his face too, with only a 29.7 passing grade under pressure in that ball game. That could be a problem, considering Kentucky's star defensive player is Washington State transfer defensive tackle David Gusta. He was 6th among all D tackles in the country last year with an 84.8 pass rush grade. The Wildcats also had a 91.7 pass rush grade against Toledo in week 1, the highest of any team in college football. If Austin Simmons is consistently under pressure, the Ole Miss offense could struggle to score, just like last year against Kentucky.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at what Kentucky did against Toledo last week, and I know obviously this is a step up offensively. 23 pressures from 14 different players, right? So maybe it's not like it used to be where Deion Walker was the big guy and you were working around it. It's a whole crew. Khalil Saunders, Cam Olds, Steven Souls, Gusto you mentioned, Tavion Gatson. I mean, you're talking about just a ton of guys and a big rotation of guys on that defensive line that could cause problems. This is the one part for a young quarterback in Austin Simmons making his first SEC start. Can you handle the pressure in front of you? Because, I mean, if it's me and Kentucky's rolling like that on the D-line, I'm not blitzing a whole lot. Let's sit back. Yeah. Let's not give up the home runs like last year. They didn't give up many deep balls last year, right? Keep it in front of them. And Simmons threw the ball well last week. I really think he did, but that was against Georgia State. This is a whole different thing. So Mark Stoops, I think the emphasis, as always, we've mentioned on both sides already, win in the trenches, be the more physical team, and that's how you're going to keep yourself in it, is get Simmons under pressure. And you mentioned it, that offensive line for Ole Miss. It was kind of a problem last year. And this year, not great again so far. So this is a unit that could be the one, this defensive line for Kentucky, that gives Ole Miss the problems.
So will Kentucky pull off another massive upset, the second one in a row over Ole Miss, or will Lane Kiffin get revenge on the Wildcats?
I'm going to take Ole Miss. I think last year, I don't want to say it's an aberration, but it was just every single thing for them went wrong in this game, right? And I just think you have a moment here where as long as Austin Simmons keeps his composure in his first SEC start, I think they're going to be okay. I've got Ole Miss 30 and Kentucky 17. I think they have so many options. You mentioned the tight ends, Dejon Stribling, Caden Lee. Harrison Wallace had a big first game last week. I'm sure you love hearing that, of the Penn State transfer. There's just so many options, and they kept the playbook pretty vanilla last week. I think they were hiding a lot of things. They didn't run a single screen, which is usually a big part of it. Daquan Wright, I really like in the play action and RPO game. He can do a lot of things after the catch. So I think Ole Miss, they have enough weapons to get this done, and I really think it comes down to me also. Just I wasn't a huge fan of what I saw from Calzado last week. He's got to be better than that. He's got to dial it back. And this is a game where you have to understand the assignment. I've talked about this before. Mark Stoops is going to go to him and say, listen, we're trying to have a slugfest here, man. I can't have you just chucking it downfield and stopping the momentum or turning the ball over or anything like that. Let's dial it back in. Let's try to win this game in a conservative manner. But I think I'm threading the needle there. If Kentucky's going to win again, I'll take Ole Miss 30-17.
I've got Ole Miss, but I don't have Ole Miss covering. I have 27-20 I have in this ball game. I think Ole Miss's offensive line could struggle once again against Kentucky, which could make it a lot closer than most people expect it to be. But even so, even if the Ole Miss offensive line struggles, I do not see Zach Calzada and the Kentucky offense putting up enough points to win this ball game. So I have it 27-20. I have Ole Miss getting revenge on Kentucky after losing to them last year.